This is John Nugent.
I'm Ron Peters.
And I'm Sam Long.
Welcome to the After Class Podcast.
Because the best conversations happen
after class. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the After Class Podcast. We're glad to have you along. As is our tradition, we usually start our episodes with some sort of a lighthearted banter, just to, warm up the crowd. Like we're the first comedian before the real comedian.
Exactly.
To get going. But as often happens, we have no idea how to begin because, I don't know, we usually rely on what's going on in our lives, what's going on campus, etc. But we're doing back-to-back episodes today.
In the middle of summer.
In the middle of summer, we got nothing.
Nothing to talk
Absolutely
about.
nothing.
Nothing's going on.
Nothing news happened since our last news.
Yeah.
Since an hour ago. Nothing's happened.
4th of July still hasn't happened for us.
Yes, actually
We still have all 10 digits.
Next episode, we'll talk about if any were lost. But in the meantime.
So we had an idea, and by we I mean John. So as a youth minister, I always like to start different lessons and things, but get to know you questions, just random questions to get started and let people, just warming them up, getting them ready for the good stuff. And so we thought, hey, maybe there's questions you would like to know about us, like simple things, like what's your favorite meal or something like that. And so we are taking questions. If you want us to start an episode answering, send that in. Yeah. You can put it in through the Facebooks, via email, pigeon, carrier pigeon, whatever it takes to get it over here. And that way, it'd be a quick little lighthearted thing. I don't know. Any thoughts about that?
I mean, I like the idea of it because, I'm sure there are listeners out there who are like, I would love for you guys to answer this question. And it's probably something we've never even thought of. And so for them to bring that up, I think that could be a lot of fun. So I'm hoping that people will take us up on this. As you said, you can send it to us a variety of ways. But this could turn into something that could be really hilarious.
Also awkward.
Fun. Awkward is great for the listener.
Like who do you have a man crush on, Ron? that would be an example.
That would be you, Sam. Come on.
Okay. Well, I mean, I understand that.
So how are people going to let us know?
Still via Facebook or
like
pigeon.
Personal
carrier pigeon
message, or we're going to start a thread and have them
if someone starts
the
a thread, they could put it in there. I don't know. One of us should do that.
Facebook Messenger is a good way to
do it.
Messenger.
I think you're the Facebook thread guy. I think that's you, Sam.
Okay.
It used to be Darren, and then he took a break from the Facebook, so he doesn't manage our Facebook anymore. And then it went back to you.
Sure. All right, I'll try to put something on there. So, we'd love to hear from you. Be creative. If yours doesn't get used, it's because it's not very good. Just kidding. Just kidding. Or we just can't fit it in.
Or it was inappropriate.
Which I'm not against it, but we'll see.
A little inappropriate. It's not too bad. We're going to have to figure out where that line is.
Remember we cut the passages that were too dark of humor from our list?
Yeah, I couldn't help but notice that a lot of those were mine. So.
All right.
3 out of 4.
Speaking of cutting passages that are perverse, we're back in our series of humor in the Bible, and we'll get into it. Today we start with possibly my favorite, what I think is the funniest line in the Bible. And it comes, I know. It comes from the Samson story. And by the way, we did a whole episode basically on Gideon last time. We could do a whole episode on Samson.
Easily.
Without a doubt, yeah.
There are a lot of funny things that happen, or just general humorous things where, he's a doofus for sure. He's a classic meathead where he just doesn't get things, and he thinks not with his brain most of the time, and it allows lots of humorous stories. But we picked one out especially, and it takes place with his first marriage. He does something he's not supposed to. He goes and marries a non-Israelite, a Philistine woman, and he has this great idea. Like a get-rich-quick scheme where I'm going to tell a riddle that there's no chance you can ever guess, and if you can't get it right, then I get 30 garments. 30 brand new suits seems pretty great.
Yeah.
These are festal garments.
That's a wardrobe that will last.
Yeah. And of course, it's based on his own experience of a thing that only he knows, right? So there's no chance anyone could ever get it. Well, there's no chance until he tells his wife, who then tells them, right? And so they're basically telling her, if you don't get this riddle answer out of him, we're going to kill you and your family. And
the setting for this is deeply ironic. He has taken a Nazirite vow, right? So he's not even supposed to come near the fruit of the vine in any way, shape, or form. and he's having this bachelor party basically in the Valley of Timnah, which is wine country.
Yes,
vineyards.
This is California wine country.
This is like going to Napa.
Yeah, so he is really flirting with his vow and getting into all sorts of trouble.
And on top of that, the riddle comes from also breaking his vow
Exactly.
by touching a dead carcass. So I'll read it. If you know what I'm talking about, you're with me, and we'll get to it. I'll start in verse 16 of chapter 14 of Judges. So Samson's wife wept before him, saying, "You hate me. You do not really love me. You have asked the riddle of my people, but you have not explained it to me." He said to her, "Look, I haven't told my father or my mother. Why should I tell you?" Like, oh, marriage starting out great. 17, she wept before him the 7 days that their feast lasted, and because she nagged him on the 7th day, he told her. Then she explained the riddle to her people. The men of the town came to him on the 7th day before the sun went down, and basically they answered the riddle. What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion? Because the riddle was, out of the eater something to eat, out of the strong something sweet. And the answer is honey in a lion carcass, right?
And so some context, I think, like all of his bachelor party, the wedding party, was like pressuring his wife.
Oh, yeah.
You have to tell us the answer to this riddle or else, kind of thing. And, that's going to really mess up his get-rich-quick scheme.
Big time.
So she's nagging him because she's being nagged.
Right, where in verse 15 they said, basically, tell us or we're going to burn you and your father's house with fire.
With you guys inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in her defense, there's some pretty heavy threats going on.
Right.
Yes.
She's being blackmailed.
Yeah.
So they get it right. And here's when Samson breaks out a clever line. He says, "If you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have found out my riddle." Which is so great because he's calling his wife a heifer, right? And if you had not gotten into it, then you never would have messed with it. And I don't know. It's just such a great like one-liner, knocks it out of the park, and they're like, "Oh, okay." And so then he goes and he takes care of business. But the humor of the line is just well played.
Yeah.
It's such great wordsmithing.
Yes.
Like he doesn't say, if you didn't, get this out of my wife, then you wouldn't know the answer. You guys didn't solve the riddle. You didn't play fair. You cheated by asking my wife. Like he doesn't say that in plain English. He has his wonderfully crafted one-liner, which is just great. One of the classic lines.
Yeah, as you say, if you would not have reaped a harvest if you didn't have my heifer, right?
Yeah.
You would not have got the answer right if you didn't have my heifer wife, and so it's really clever.
Well, and this whole marriage is starting out really poorly, just like
It's almost like it's doomed.
You would think that up front, right? But to call your wife a cow, like that it's like the cherry on the top of that sundae. It's like you're just dooming this whole thing to failure. And so the idea of calling his wife a cow is just so bad.
Yeah, and
Bad
right off the
Samson.
bat, comparing, her to, the mother-in-law. Like, I didn't even tell my mom and dad. Now we're starting the relational thing off on the wrong foot. And they already don't like her because she's a Philistine. Like, bad stuff.
Yeah. Comparing your wife to a heifer is not found in the Song of Songs. Just a heads up for those keeping track.
Yep.
Others, not necessarily flattering either. But
Right.
Yeah, but he's not calling her a heifer.
No, he's
but
not.
It is an
Right.
analogy. It's a comparison. But that's what makes it funny. Especially because in English, like, as an insult, we certain call people a cow.
Yep.
I don't know if that was common in Hebrew, or they would have,
Can't
if it would
think
have
of
had
any
the
other
same
examples.
connotation as it does. This might be one that is funnier for us than the original audience. Yeah.
Could be.
Possibly.
Yeah.
All right. And again, there's lots of other funny things about the Samson story. Like the way that Samson makes them to be idiots. Like when he tells Delilah, like, "Oh yeah, just put my hair in these pins and this thing. I'll lose all my strength." There's no chance that's what the solution is.
Time me up with brand new bowstrings.
Yeah, it's got to be brand new.
Yeah, brand new
Somewhere.
bowstrings. They can't have been used.
Yeah, he is definitely toying with her, but ultimately, ends up giving the secret away.
Yeah, and pays the price for it. All right, the next passage we're going to look at comes from the book of Ruth chapter 1, verse 1. And this is another one that I think a lot of people probably just don't pick up on because they don't give it a lot of thought. But there's kind of ironic humor here once you understand what's going on. So it says, "In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, And a certain man of Bethlehem in Judah went to live in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. And so they're like, yeah, that doesn't sound very funny. That sounds really bad. Is this dark
that
humor?
sounds awful.
Yeah, is this dark humor that Ron puts in there that should have been cut out? But you got to understand what the name Bethlehem means. Bethlehem means house of bread. Okay, that's literally what it means. And so there's a famine in the house of bread. And that's just makes you go, oh, yeah, that's kind of funny. And I could see the original audience going, oh, a famine in the house of bread. That's, is it haha funny or is it ironic funny? But there's it's still a kind of dark humor that I think stands out on that.
Yeah, and the naming in the Book of Ruth in general seems very intentional and crafted or ironic or whatever. Like Boaz means in him is strength, right? And he becomes the source of the next generation and ultimately the line of David. Orpah, her name means back of the neck, and she's the one who kind of turns her back on Naomi. Naomi's name means pleasant, and she gets renamed Mara for bitter, and so lots of reason to think that the names mean. I forget what Ruth's name means. I think it's less symbolic than all the other names.
Yeah,
and like her brothers, they're her husband's name.
Yeah, Mechlan Kilian
means like
diseased or
and spent.
Sickly, and yeah,
they all mean stuff means death, and the father's her father's name kind of points to the time period of
Elimelech. My God is king.
Yep.
Yeah. So
kind of describing
when judges ruled, how it was supposed to be, right? God was supposed to be king. Yeah. There are a lot of name puns that it seems to be crafted in a certain way to belie what they're actually doing in the story, what's happening in the story.
Yeah, and I give all that wider context just to say Bethlehem is not just a coincidence that the famine happens in Bethlehem. That's part of the tightly way this is narrated and the irony that is behind the storyline.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, if you lived in a place called Sweetwater, but it was full of like brackish, swampy water, like that's the irony of it all. Like, it's not living up to its name.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other thoughts on that? All right, moving on to 1 Samuel, chapter 5. This is a fun story.
Also one of my favorites.
We're going to be doing verses 1 through 5. When the Philistines captured the ark of God, they brought it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. Then the Philistines took the ark of God and brought it into the house of Dagon and placed it beside Dagon, which is the Philistine god. When the people of Ashdod rose early the next day, there was Dagon fallen on his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord. So they took Dagon and put him back in his place. But when they arose early on the next morning, Dagon had fallen on his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord. And the head of Dagon and both his hands were lying cut off upon the threshold. Only the trunk of Dagon was left to him. This is why the priests of Dagon and all who enter the house of Dagon do not step on the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod to this day.
So I love the image of an idol bowing down to the symbol of Yahweh. It's just beautiful, and it's more mockery of idols.
Yep.
It's the constant theme that we have talked about many times, that even the idols have to bow down before Yahweh, and it's so insulting to the Philistines. It's insulting to their gods, and I think of oral traditions and as they're passed on, and I can see like the bard telling the story around the campfire. And they get to the point, and Dagon fell down before the ark, and everybody shouts, "Yeah!" You get this big cheer. Our God is better than your God. So
then the second day, I mean, they're like, "Oh, I better put him back up." Like they don't.
A stiff wind blew it over.
Right, right. And then but this is this God who's like, down on his face.
Yes.
And like bowing. Literally, it's like he's bowing before the ark.
Yeah.
Right. And then the next day, after they set him up, he's down on the ground, limbless, which is just great because you're gonna put this little stump back up there, like he's been dismembered.
Yeah.
And so that to me, the second day, like if they're telling it around the campfire, like the first one they're like, yeah. The second one they're like, now that's funny. This limbless thing lying on the ground, like this is your God.
And I can see it in front of the temple, like you've got the doors to the temple. It's all taped off. It's like yellow tape, and they're like, yeah, we got something we got to fix in
Nothing
here.
to see here.
Yeah, just keep walking. Normal sacrifices will resume in a few weeks when we can build ourselves a new god.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. That this is the sort of thing that lends itself to just sitting around the campfire and telling a story. And just I think of the scene in Return of the Jedi where C-3PO is telling the story of the Ewoks.
Oh, right,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like, that's great. That's kind of like I see happening as someone is telling the story really well.
That's a great way to describe it.
But all of which say it's intended to mock Dagon and these other deities. Like that they're idols that they put all their hope in, just like it can't stand before the Ark of the Covenant, which stands for God's presence. And so,
well, and I'm sure that the Philistines were probably feeling pretty good about themselves. It's like, not only have we defeated these Israelites, they're kind of a pain in our side, but we've got the symbol of their God. They haul it into town. There's probably big parades. Look, we got the Ark. Yay, we're going to put it in our temple. We're going to symbolize how, they're under our heels until the next morning. It's like, oh, this isn't right.
And this is what's kind of cool about the Bible's sense of humor. It's kind of like you're making an important, serious theological thought. These idols are not real. God is holy. His holiness cannot be contained by his own people. And the fact that they lose doesn't mean that he's not still the omnipotent, all-holy God above all gods.
Yeah.
Like, they're making a serious theological point, but in a very funny way.
Right.
And some of the best humor in the Old Testament is mocking these idols. And we've already seen it a few different scenes, and we're going to see even more of it. Isaiah might be the pinnacle of it.
yes.
Oh, I love Isaiah for mocking idolatry. He is so good.
All right. Well, we move further in Samuel, 1 Samuel 24. And this is after an evil spirit has come on Saul. He's trying to kill David. David's on the run for his life. And there's a cute little, cute's probably the wrong word, interesting little story that takes place in chapter 24. It says this: When Saul returned from following the Philistines, he was told, David is in the wilderness of En-Gedi. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel and went to look for David and his men in the direction of the rocks of the wild goats. I'm going to stop there because there's actually something, in my opinion, that's kind of funny before we get to the actual funny part. I don't know if you got to do any, when you're in Israel, if you got to go to the wilderness of En-Gedi or at all, but when it says like the rocks of the wild goats, it means only goats hang out here. There's next to nothing.
Yeah.
There's just like, it's awful. It's hot. It's not good. It's not a good time.
Yeah.
And so when it says that he's in the wilderness of En-Gedi, you assume that David and his men are actually in this like horrible thing. But there are other stories that talk about they're at this oasis. So it's almost like David and his men are sipping Mai Tais around this oasis. And Saul and his men are traipsing up and down the wilderness, hot and just stinking like awful, right? That's kind of like behind, it's kind of under the surface of this story. But anyway, keep going. Yeah. And so verse 3, he came to the sheepfolds beside the road where there was a cave. And Paul went in to relieve himself. Saul went in to relieve himself. Now David and his men were sitting in the innermost parts of the cave. So they're running from Saul. They're hiding. They happen to pick a cave, the exact same cave that Saul chooses to relieve himself. Mm-hmm. The men of David said to him, "Here is the day of which Yahweh said to you, I will give your enemy into your hand, and you shall do to him as it seems good to you." So David went and stealthily cut off a corner of Saul's cloak. Afterward, David was stricken to the heart because he'd cut off a corner of Saul's cloak. He said to his men, "Yahweh forbid that I should do this thing to my Lord, Yahweh's anointed, to raise my hand against him, for he is Yahweh's anointed." So David rebuked his men severely and did not permit them to attack Saul. Then Saul got up and left the cave and went on his way. And so it's just a hilarious story. Like he pulls a prank on Saul is what ends up happening.
Yeah.
It reminds me of all these these TikToks and of people pulling pranks, doing stuff against people. I don't know if you guys did pranks on your friends growing up, but they're in the shower and you take a big bucket of cold water and dump it over on them, things like that. I mean, of course, this is far more serious. Saul's trying to kill David, but David sees him as God's anointed, and he cuts off a piece of his cloak, which he uses later to impress upon Saul, "I could have killed you."
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Or cut off your member. Not just so.
Yeah.
But it's just a funny scene where the king, of course, has to relieve himself, and there's this great opportunity, and Dave's like, "Ooh, this will be funny."
I don't know. I would be like, they're all in the back of the cave, and Saul comes in there, and if I was those guys, I'm like, oh, this is gross.
Sure.
Like, get this guy out of here. Oh my, kill him, do something. But we got to redeem ourselves here. So he's in here, stinking up the place.
And he was as vulnerable
Yes.
as a man can be. He's alone.
Yeah.
And he's going to the bathroom. Like,
Yeah.
his pants are down. Like, they could have done whatever they wanted.
Exactly.
And David does show, he's got this remarkable deference toward the kingship. And maybe, I wondered about this. Like, wow, David this is maybe that man after God's own heart thing. Like, really valuing Saul's life, even though Saul, it's like the example of enemy love. But then when he when Nabal, ticks him off later on, he's like, let's kill him and everyone in his household.
Right, yeah.
He's just got no such deference for life, unless you're the king. Because, he's going to be king someday, and he wants that role to be respected and not to be an easy target.
Well, and, you see it in Hebrew or in the Greek translation of the Old Testament, where David calls him a Messiah, or in the Greek version, a Christ, a Christos. He's like, you don't touch God's Messiah. God is the one who put him in that position. I'm not going to go after him. God can take care of it, but I'm not going to get involved in that. So there's a certain respect for, what God has ordained, I will not touch.
And it's got to be scandalous for David's men. They're like, here is the greatest threat to
Oh
your
my
survival
gosh, yeah.
and ours. Because they're not just going to kill you. They're going to kill all these people who defected to you.
Yeah.
Right.
And we have a chance to take this guy out and then become, first in command, to
Yeah.
have the kingship and to have, they are thinking upward mobility,
Mhm.
and David rebukes them.
Yeah.
That's not how it's going to happen. He's God's king, not ours. So, it's a serious account, but funny. Like,
Without a doubt.
in the whole bathroom scene.
Yeah, it's something right out of like a rom-com or something. Could be, except for the other part.
Right.
Right.
I don't know how this ended on me, because this is one I really wanted in there, and it just happens that it's going to fall to me to read this. So
You're the only one who wanted it in here.
yeah, and I'm still glad it's in there, because
We paced it out perfectly.
we really did. I don't think it was intentional, but I'm kind of glad it's there. This is in 1 Samuel 25. And for this one, it kind of depends on the translation you're using.
Yeah, it kind of makes a difference.
It does. Although it's fairly literal to what it reads in Greek. The only reason I even know about this is when I was a student here, this is going back into the 90s, I just stumbled across a scholarly article that actually talked about this. And I made a copy of it. It's like 30 years old, and it's somewhere around here in my office. I don't know where it is. But it's just a really funny moment to me, and we'll see if our listeners think it's funny. But it's in 1 Samuel 25, verse 34, when David goes to Nabal for help, and Nabal refuses to help him out. And so David says to his men, all right, get your swords. We're going after his household. And in the meantime, Nabal's wife, Abigail, finds out about it, gathers up a ton of food, and goes out to meet David and basically intercedes on Nabal's behalf. And so David's like, wow, you're wise. We were coming in here. And I love what he says here. It's in verse 34. And it's King James, and so it can be hard to follow at times. But as David's responding to her, he says, for in very deed, as the Lord God of Israel liveth, which hath kept me back from hurting thee, except thou hadst hasted to come and meet me. Surely there would not have been left unto Nabal by the morning light any that pisseth against the wall. And I have just always found that line to be hilarious. It's not we're gonna go in there and kill every man. And if you look at many modern translations, they definitely kind of soften that. But it's a euphemism. Guys can pee against a wall. And David says, hey, Abigail, if you hadn't interceded, we would have gone in there and, saying killed every man, but killed everybody who pisseth against the wall. And in the King James translation, they went very literal on that. And it's one of those moments where I think people don't realize sometimes what their own Bibles say, and especially the King James only folks out there who are particularly committed to that translation. I've just always found this to be a very funny passage in my mind. Maybe not as funny to the original audience, but I just can't help but chuckle every time I read it.
Well, definitely is a choice of the original writer to say piss against the wall, because there's word for male.
Yeah.
And they could have used that, but they definitely made it like even more graphic, just to get that across.
It's using this euphemism, obviously.
Yes, which is a very interesting choice.
Yeah.
And we talked about the word choice of was it Jerubbaal
Mm-hmm.
in
Oh,
the
right,
previous
yeah.
count, or no, Samson with plowing with my heifer. Like,
Oh, right.
they have these moments where they could just say something very literally and forthrightly, and they don't. They
Yep.
just have this more graphic image or funnier, more concise image. But yeah, men urinate standing up,
Exactly.
against the wall. And I have memories of like men's retreats where we're all peeing on fences and stuff like that. And, like, guys do stupid things when they go to the bathroom in large groups.
Sword fights. a lot happens. That's fine.
Don't cross the streams.
so
Peeing
then-
on ant hills. We can
Oh,
go
right,
on and on.
yeah.
Sorry, do we not want to keep going? John's like, please stop.
We might want to.
Some restaurants put little targets in toilets.
Yeah, of course.
so
Oh,
that
yeah.
people can aim at them. And so here's David like tapping into this reality.
Yeah.
And this is something that distinguishes men and women and how they go to the bathroom. And that's the image he chooses to use. It's colorful language. It's kind of humorous language.
And maybe they did. Maybe there was some chuckles, around the campfires as stories being told or whatever. It kind of makes me think too of like the old troughs back way back
I love
in the day.
troughs.
Just this trough and all these guys standing there and
Well, that's what they used to put in sporting
exactly.
places. Like it's a big old trough. A bunch of guys just get around and start peeing. It went a lot faster.
Oh man.
And there's still
Very
some
much so.
places that have those still.
Yep.
Old school.
Yeah, I've seen them
Yeah.
here and there.
Now,
When I was in Australia, they had them in certain places.
Okay.
Australia had interesting and creative bathroom stalls. They had a giant picture of a turtle, like a sea turtle, on the wall, and like, this is the distance that you should be standing between you and the people next to you when you go to the bathroom. And it's clearly bigger than the distance that they had between the actual urinals.
right.
That's so
They
weird.
didn't align with their own recommendation.
That's-
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
2 other factoids. So the word for urinating is shatan, not satan. Shatan. I thought that was interesting. I had to look it up because it's only used like 6 times in the New Testament or in the Old Testament. And second, didn't we write a biblically correct satire on this passage?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote that one.
And by we, I mean Ron.
Yeah.
You were the primary. Yes.
Yeah, because I think one of the key plot points is that they removed all the urinals in the church because of this. Everything had to be stools, and there was like this ridiculous reading of the King James translation, which forced a ridiculous response. So
Yeah.
no urinals.
And it was a play on like the Church of Christ movement. Like, if it's not in the Bible, like, we do things the way they do it in the Bible.
Yeah, right.
Right? And in the
biblically
Bible,
correct.
there's this account where men are described as urinating against walls.
Yeah.
Therefore, in churches, that's the proper biblical way for men to urinate, is against the wall.
No.
Or no,
in
or
the
he
story-
says cursed, so we got to
Yeah,
remove them.
because
Yeah,
David's
it's the
going to
opposite.
kill them all.
Right.
So we got to pull out all the urinals.
That's
so that
right.
was
Yeah, remove them because they're the ones who are cursed in the Bible.
Yeah.
I thought it was a clever plot line for a satire.
yeah.
For our new listeners, we did about a year of in the Christian
Standard.
Standard. It was called Biblically Correct. We did a satire at the end of the magazine for each month. I'm sure that's still on the internet somewhere.
Yeah,
I'm sure
we
they're out
produced
there,
12
yeah.
satires, and I don't know, they're the property of the Christian Standard,
Yes.
but I don't know if they're still available.
I bet you can find it on the website somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure.
If not, we have
Yeah, looking
copies.
up old archives,
Yeah. So look for it, Biblically Correct. So a play on politically correct, but the Bible. I thought it was a good satire name for a column.
What bad.
I think overwhelmingly they were hilarious. They were all very well done.
Sadly, we're the only ones who thought that.
Well, and
No,
there's
it was funny enough to get a year run, but
Yeah.
after that, they're like, yeah, we're moving in a different direction.
yeah.
You know, something
Evidently,
actually funny.
the Onion's not proper for our particular publication.
Yeah,
So
we may have kind of pushed the limits a little bit in our satire. Like,
We
humor is
probably
a
did.
delicate thing,
It is a
right?
delicate
oh
And-
yeah,
And that, the Christian Standard has a very diverse audience, from the most conservative knitting grandmas to, right, some people want to be on the cutting edge of everything and
Yeah.
kind of wild and pushing the limits. So, yeah, 1 year, one and done.
one and done.
But yeah, 12 episodes. We thought about pulling them together in a book sometime or adding to them, but nothing came of that project.
That
we
would be
talked about
kind
it.
of fun though, if they would agree to obviously to let us use them. That would actually be kind of fun putting them together in a little book.
Yeah.
See, yeah.
So in our list of verses, I found a typo. And that's caused some confusion. I think the that passage you referred to in verse 34 is also in verse 22. I think
It is.
It's there
Is
twice.
it okay?
But you went to 34 because that's your favorite one, I guess, your version of it. but I have on here 1 Samuel 25. I meant to say 25:25, so I'll read that one. And this is earlier in the story, and so David goes to Nabal and asks for help for him and his men, provisions for them on their journey, and he totally rebukes him, and that's why he threatens, "I'm going to kill every man who urinates against the wall." And then his wife Abigail hears that her husband disrespected David and his men, and now their whole family's in trouble because of it. And so she goes to him, and I guess I'll go back to verse 23. When Abigail saw David, she hurried and dismounted from the donkey and fell before David on her face, bowing to the ground. She fell at his feet and said, "Upon me alone, my lord, be the guilt. Please let your servant speak in your ears and hear the words of your servant. My lord, do not take seriously this ill-natured fellow Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, your servant, did not see the young men of my lord, whom you sent." So she's totally thrown her husband under the bus. His name means fool.
Mm-hmm.
And so she said this great line to David, one of the classiest, humorous lines spoken by a woman in the Bible, of her husband, "As his name is, so is he."
Can you imagine being married to someone whose name is Fool? It's like going back to your parents, like, "Mom, Dad, why'd you arrange this marriage?"
Can you imagine naming your kid Fool?
Right.
Like,
maybe that wasn't his birth name, but over time they're like, "Yeah, we're changing your name because
That's
you
right.
are just
You earned it."
stupid." Yeah.
yeah, that would be funny. I do think it's, this is a whole other side. People, what they name their kids these days, like, you're setting them up for failure. Like, they name them, like, Messiah. Like, that's...
Oh, no.
Like, really? I don't think that's the way to go.
Yeah. It's a bad call.
But, like, on the other end, like, I think most parents are, like, unless they're complete jerks, they're not going to name their kid terrible things like Fool. But
Yeah.
here we are.
Imagine a kid just being called moron.
Yeah. Their whole life.
That's kind of what Nabal, how Nabal comes
Exactly.
off in the Hebrew. My husband's a moron. She's basically saying, don't kill everyone.
You don't kill him because he's stupid. Like,
Yeah. So it turns out good for her. Like, her husband dies,
She marries-
and then she becomes David's wife.
right.
So and he starts building his harem against Torah.
Right. Yeah.
So we actually skipped one in our canonical order. If we go back to 1 Samuel 21, this is before David. He's earlier running for his life. He's still running for his life. There's about 10 chapters of him running for his life, and the things that ensue. But in chapter 21, he ran away, and he ran to King Achish of Gath, and Gath is in Philistia. So he's going to their arch enemies, right? Their nemesis, to hang out. And it says, the servants of Achish said to him, "Is this not David, the king of the land? Did they not sing to one another of him in dances? Saul has killed his thousands and David his 10,000s." So, like, this guy is a big deal, and he's here. Like, and if he's their big champion and he killed our champion, it's time to take care of him. Verse 12. David took these words to heart and was very much afraid of King Achish of Gath, as he should be. So he changed his behavior before them. He pretended to be mad when in their presence. He scratched marks on the doors of the gate and let his spittle run down his beard. So, so he acts crazy, which I don't know what he thought was going to happen with that. I think his best case scenario, what easily could have happened, like, this guy's crazy, let's put him out of his misery. They didn't do that, as we read as next thing, but he's just looking like all crazy. Then Achish said to his servants, and this is the funny line, "Look you see this man is mad? Why have you brought him to me? Do I lack madmen that you brought this fellow to play the madman in my presence?" And it was like, I'm surrounded by idiots. Why are you bringing another one here? Like, I've got enough of you yahoos. Don't bring me another one. I don't care who it is.
I am surrounded by loonies. Get this loony out of here.
It's just this Deuteronomistic historian just tells stories so well. Like, he didn't need to make, this king funny. Right. And respond and, throw his own men under the bus in response to David. Instead of just saying, "Why you bring this madman to me?" They tell a good story. And it just reminds me, like, this is what's so amazing about so much of the Bible. You slow down and you read it, and it's just told well.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yep.
And funny. And you just see David like acting crazy. That would be, again, a funny scene to watch in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man,
Like
without
someone
doubt.
portraying this, him just going nuts. And it works as a strategy. So David's very resourceful in these years.
So will this be season 2 of the House of David?
We may get to see this,
if they
actually.
I don't know. I think it's going to be probably a little bit later. I don't know.
Yeah.
Could be wrong, but
I mean, I don't know. I didn't watch all the first season, so I don't know how far they got. I know they got to the Goliath.
If they take it all the way to his death, I mean, we're going to see this scene at some point.
Yeah.
It's
Hopefully. It's too good
rich
not
to pass
yes,
up.
It's too good not to include.
so yeah, it's got to be in there at some point. Yeah, I look forward to that.
I actually preached from this passage at the Ohio Teens for Christ conference, and I did an AI generate what he would have looked like, and I got some interesting,
Him
stuff
feigning
that-
insanity,
Yeah, just wide-eyed, wide mouth, big old beard.
foaming at the mouth.
Pretty cool.
All right, looks like we're skipping ahead at this point. Must not be too many other funny things there in the
Samuel? Yeah, not really. Well, there's a lot of sadness.
lot of tragedy.
Yes.
But we're moving ahead to 1 Kings chapter 18.
I mean, I could throw in the David dancing not naked, but in his underwear, but that's not exactly funny. It's just kind of interesting.
Yeah. So in 1 Kings chapter 18, this is a story that I think most people are very familiar with. It's the confrontation between Elijah and the prophets of Baal. And so they make 2 altars, and they're going to see which god will light the sacrifice on fire. And whoever does that, that'll be the true God. And so they come up with this contest. We can find out who the real God is. Then Elijah said to the people, this is 18 verse 22, even I only am left, a prophet of the Lord, but Baal's prophets number 450. It's a lot of prophets. And it costs a lot of money to feed those guys. Let 2 bulls be given to us. Let them choose 1 bull for themselves, cut it in pieces and lay it on the wood, but put no fire to it. I will prepare the other bull and lay it on the wood, but put no fire to it. Then you call in the name of your God, and I will call in the name of Yahweh, the Lord. The God who answers by fire is indeed God. All the people answered, well spoken. I love that. Good idea. Then Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, choose yourselves 1 bull, prepare it at first. You are the many. Then call on the name of your God, but put no fire to it. So they took the bull that was given to them, prepared it, and called on the name of Baal from morning until noon, crying, oh, Baal, answer us. But there was no voice and no answer. They limped about the altar that they had made. At noon, Elijah mocked them, saying, cry aloud, surely he's a god. Either he's meditating, or he's wandered away, or he's on a journey, or perhaps he is asleep and must be awakened. And then they cried aloud, and as was their custom, they cut themselves with swords and lances until the blood gushed over them. As midday passed, they raved on until the time of the offering of the oblation, but there was no voice, no answer, no response. So it seems like they've sanitized this a little bit. It seems like there's something
Possibly.
more. Yeah.
Well, I looked into this one, and some translations say this differently. I went back to the Hebrew, and it seemed like the sanitized one's actually the more accurate one.
Probably.
But several readers brought this, I say the readers, listeners, brought this to my attention when we were doing some crowdsourcing as a funny verse. But like in Hebrew, it just has like, is your God maybe asleep or has he wandered off? And he's talking trash. But in some versions, like contemporary English version, I think maybe even the ESV, it's like, is he on the toilet? Like, has he,
exactly.
maybe they're, translating the wandering off to like, did he, like Saul, just kind of go off to himself in the cave to relieve himself? Is that where he's at? And so those translations are much more interesting than the NRSV.
Yeah, so it's where the English is maybe just a little bit funnier than the original Hebrew is. Because as I was reading it through here going, it seems like there's something missing there, but...
Yeah, they're assuming euphemisms that may or may not be in play. If they are, it's hilarious. If they're not, it's still funny.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if your God's sleeping, that's mockery itself. But if your God's pooping, that's even funnier, right?
Exactly.
And so just what level of humor is it?
Well, even the idea of wandering off, I could see this guy
he got
just
lost.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know where I am. Like, can you tell me how to get back to Samaria? I just can't seem to find my way. I hear there's this thing going on in Mount Carmel, but I'm not sure where it is. Just this idiot God that is very easy to take down with your words.
Yeah. So funnier in certain translations, but either way, he's clearly mocking them and pointing out that, yeah, your God is nothing.
I mean, Elijah is my idol. My that's who I follow. If he mocks people, I do too. So
There you go.
that's where I get it from. So
Why you named your son?
Good precedence. Yeah. I've raised him to be a mocker.
Yeah.
Well done. I think you succeeded in that.
He has inherited that well.
Yes.
He has good sense of humor.
Sometimes a little too much. Okay.
All right. Moving forward to 2 Kings, I'm going to actually read more of this because some of the earlier part of the story is kind of funny. So this is a confrontation between Elijah and Ahaziah, the king. And in verse 2 of 2 Kings 1, Ahaziah had fallen through the lattice in his upper chamber in Samaria. That's just kind of funny. Like, I want to watch this. Like, how did this dude fall through the lattice? So this is what sets
He's
up
pooping.
the scene. Right. Okay, where was I? Okay. And so he was injured. So he sent messengers telling them, "Go inquire of Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron, whether I shall recover from this injury." But the angel of the Lord said to Elijah the Tishbite, "Get up, go meet the messengers of the king of Samaria, and say to them, is it because there is no God in Israel that you are going to inquire of Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron? Now, therefore, thus says the Lord, you shall not leave the bed to which you have gone, but you shall surely die." So Elijah went. The messengers returned to the king, who said to them, "Why have you returned?" They answered him, "There came a man to meet us, who said to us, 'Go back and tell the king who sent you, and say to him, thus says the Lord, is it because there is no God in Israel that you are sending to inquire of Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron? Therefore you shall not leave the bed to which you have gone, but shall surely die.' He said to them, 'What sort of man was he who came to meet you and told you these things?' They answered him, 'A hairy man with a leather belt around his waist.' He said, 'This is Elijah the Tishbite.'" And so literally, and this is kind of funny, and you see it more in the Hebrew, the phrase hairy man, which is kind of funny that this is, and the king asked not who sent you, but what kind of man? Like in the categories of men.
Yes.
Oh, he falls in the category of a hairy man.
So Neanderthal.
But in Hebrew, it's a lord of hair. The Lord of hair has sent us to you. And this, of course, Baal-zebub is used in the same passage, right? And so we're comparing the Baal and who is the Lord in this account, the Lord of hair or the
Lord of hair. Oh man, I just now have this vision, like because you know this passage, and so he was a hairy guy, but if he's a Lord of hair, it's like, oh my gosh, how much hair did this guy have on his body? Holy cow!
But it's the whole passage is making fun of Baal.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, like Baal-zebub, there's no record of a god named Baal-zebub in the ancient world. That god does not exist because that god means Lord of Flies. Because who's going to be like, who wants that to be their god? Like, we all hate flies. They're the worst, right? Well, mosquitoes. But anyway, it's terrible, right? But there is a god named Baal-zebul. And Baal-zebul, one letter difference, means something like Lord of Royalty or something like that. And so what they've done, the writer has changed one letter to make a mockery of it, right? Baal-zebul, Baal-zebub. And so now it's like we do with people, like we make a pun on their name, and so you change one letter, it sounds like something, and now you're making fun of them. That's exactly what they're doing, right? They're making fun of this Lord of Flies, which is not really a thing. And so all these Baal-zebub, Baal-zebul, the Lord of Hair, like it's all it's all like you have all these manifestations of this deity, and they're all a joke.
Yeah, and he places it in the mouth of the king.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought, I wondered, like, you would expect, like, maybe he would go seek, Beelzebul, and then Elijah's like, why are you seeking Beelzebub? Like you would put the mocking on his lips, but no, they go one step further and just they name him Lord of Flies or rename him throughout the whole narrative, and that itself is kind of an irony and a good name of a book.
It's a pretty decent book.
Right? Yeah.
Maybe the movie.
I've seen the movie. It's been a long time.
It's a long time since I've seen the movie.
We were young.
Piggy in the Conch. All right, go ahead.
Oh man, Piggy. Who wrote that? Was that Steinbeck? Did he write Lord?
No.
Who wrote? Oh, that's of Mice and Men. Lord of the Flies. Someone.
I can't remember who wrote it.
If it wasn't written
Those
in
are
the
me.
Bronze Age, I don't really know.
If only we had some device we could hold in our hands so we could look this
Yeah,
up
we're not
really
gonna do
quick.
it.
And, yeah, doesn't matter that much. Do we want to try to get one more in here just because it's Elijah again?
Yeah.
Or no?
sure.
Yeah.
Is it not?
Or is that Elisha
No,
now?
this is Elisha, I think.
Yeah.
I say we stop. That's a good one to start the next episode with.
Start the next episode with that? Okay, that's pretty good.
But it is an interesting contrast because we're ending on the man of hair.
So we're going to move the opposite direction on that one. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us this week's episode of the After Class podcast. After Class because.
The best conversations happen
After class.
Thank you again for listening to this episode of the After Class podcast. ACP is hosted by Sam Long, John Nugent, and Ron Peters. Social media pictures and descriptions are provided by Darren Harris. Audio mixing and editing is done by Drew Nyquist. If you've enjoyed this episode of ACP, you might also enjoy GLCC's Master of Arts in Practical Theology degree. In this 36-hour program, you will receive first-rate biblical and theological instruction from John, Ron, Sam, and several of their colleagues at Great Lakes Christian College. To learn more about this program, visit glcc.edu. Get practical and go deep at GLCC.